What if I told you that everything falling apart in your life right now, the relationship that's crumbling, the bank account that's always empty, the opportunities that keep slipping through your fingers, isn't happening to you by accident, but is actually being created by something you're doing every single day without even realizing it? Before we dive deep into this revelation, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Has this ever happened to you? You wake up in the morning, and before your feet even hit the floor, your mind is already replaying yesterday's argument with your spouse. You're thinking about that bill you can't pay. You're reliving that embarrassing moment at work, and somehow, mysteriously, your entire day just continues to spiral in that same miserable direction. By evening, you're convinced the universe has it out for you, that bad luck follows you like a shadow, that nothing ever works out no matter how hard you try. But what if I told you the universe isn't conspiring against you at all? What if the truth is far more empowering and perhaps a little uncomfortable? What if every single circumstance in your life, from your financial situation to your health, from your relationships to your career, is simply responding to a frequency you're broadcasting every moment of every day? There's an ancient principle that's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Most people read that line and think it's just beautiful poetry, some inspirational quote to put on a coffee mug. But stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. This isn't poetry at all. This is a scientific law operating in your life right now with the same mathematical precision as gravity. Think about it. Gravity doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. Jump off a building while denying gravity exists, and you'll still hit the ground. The law of mind works exactly the same way. Whether you're aware of it or not, whether you accept it or not, your dominant thoughts and mental patterns are shaping, molding, and creating every single experience you're having in your physical reality. Right now, as you're watching this, there's an invisible architecture being constructed in your mind. Every thought you think is like laying down another brick. Every emotion you feel is like applying another layer of paint. And the structure you're building internally is determining exactly what shows up in your external world. Your circumstances, your relationships, your financial reality, even your physical health. The question isn't whether this law is operating. It's operating constantly, flawlessly, without exception. The real question is, are you using this law consciously to build the life you actually want? Or are you unconsciously using it to keep recreating the same painful patterns over and over again? What you're about to learn in the next few minutes could fundamentally change how you approach every single day of your life, because once you understand the mechanics of how your thoughts become your reality, here's the brutal truth that most people will never accept. Nothing in your life is happening by coincidence. Not the toxic relationship you can't seem to escape, not the job that drains your soul, not the health issues that keep recurring, not the financial struggle that feels like quicksand. Every single one of these circumstances is a photograph, a precise mirror image of what you've been sustaining inside your consciousness day after day, week after week, year after year. I know that might sound harsh, maybe even unfair, but here's where this gets fascinating and empowering. If your external reality is truly a reflection of your internal state, that means you hold the power to change everything. Not someday, not when conditions are perfect. Right now, in this moment, by understanding how this mental mechanism actually operates. Think about what happens when you wake up in the morning, still angry about something that happened last week. You're replaying that conversation where someone disrespected you. You're nursing that grievance like it's a precious possession you can't let go of. And then mysteriously, your entire day becomes colored by that same energy. People seem ruder than usual, traffic is more frustrating, conversations at work feel tense. Your whole day takes on this tone of conflict and irritation. Is that coincidence? Or is the universe simply delivering more experiences that match the frequency you've been broadcasting since you opened your eyes? If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. I'm here sharing practical tools that go beyond surface level. Motivation, real techniques you can use to consciously design your life. Now flip that scenario. Imagine waking up and consciously choosing to cultivate thoughts of peace, gratitude, appreciation for what's working in your life. Not because everything is perfect, it never is, but because you understand that your internal state is literally instructing reality about what to show you next. When you make that shift, something remarkable happens. Facts literally begin to arrange themselves differently. The difficult person at work suddenly seems less antagonistic. The problem you've been stressing about finds an unexpected solution. Opportunities appear that weren't there yesterday. This isn't magic. This isn't wishful thinking or delusional positivity. This is cause and effect operating at the level of consciousness. Thought is always the cause. Experience is always the effect. Once you truly grasp this sequence, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become the architect of your reality. Now I want to go even deeper into this hidden mechanism that's running your life behind the scenes. Every single morning when you open your eyes, whether you realize it or not, you're loading a film into the projector of your mind. And that film, the story you tell yourself about who you are, what's possible for you, what kind of day you're going to have, that film is what gets projected onto the screen of your daily experience. Most people are walking around playing the same worn-out film they loaded 10 years ago. The film that says money is hard to come by. The film that says good relationships aren't meant for people like them. The film that says their health problems are genetic and unchangeable. And then they wonder why their life looks exactly the same, year after year, like a movie stuck on repeat. But here's the revelation that changes everything. You can change the film. You're not stuck with the programming you inherited from your parents, your past experiences, or your current circumstances. This goes so far beyond positive thinking or repeating affirmations that don't feel true. This is about understanding spiritual technology. Yes, technology that operates according to precise laws. When you learn how to consciously load a different film into your mental projector, when you understand how to sustain that new image with emotional conviction, your external world has no choice but to reorganize itself to match that internal blueprint. The reflection must follow the original. It's not a matter of hope or belief. It's mechanical. It's inevitable. Write in the comments, "I'm changing my film," if you're starting to see how this invisible process might be operating in your own life right now. The moment you truly understand this, everything shifts, because you suddenly realize that the real battlefield isn't out there in the world. It's not your difficult boss, your bank account, your health condition, or your relationship problems. Those are just symptoms, effects, reflections. The real battlefield, the only place where lasting change can ever occur, is in the secret laboratory of your own consciousness. This is where most people get it completely backwards. They're out there fighting with circumstances, trying to force external conditions to change through sheer willpower and effort. They're working longer hours to fix the money problem. They're having the same argument over and over, trying to fix the relationship problem. They're bouncing from doctor to doctor trying to fix the health problem, and they're exhausted because they're fighting battles in the wrong location. Here's the hidden truth. Once you learn to operate this internal laboratory correctly, once you master the simple but precise science of changing the interior image, the exterior reflection has to move. It's not optional. It's not a matter of luck or timing. It's mechanical, infallible, as reliable as any law of physics. Change the original, and the copy must change. Adjust the broadcast frequency, and you receive different channels. Rewrite the internal script, and the external drama transforms to match it. But I know what you might be thinking right now. This sounds great in theory, but how does it actually work in the messy reality of everyday life? How do you apply this when you're stressed about rent, dealing with difficult people, or facing challenges that feel completely overwhelming? That's exactly where most spiritual teaching fails. Beautiful concepts that dissolve the moment you try to use them in real-world situations. So let me break down exactly how genuine transformation happens, because there's a pattern that repeats itself with absolute precision every single time someone's life shifts from struggle to flow, from limitation to abundance, from pain to peace. This pattern has three distinct phases, and when you understand all three, you gain access to a technology that works regardless of your current circumstances. The first phase is recognizing the fundamental principle at work. Just like gravity operates whether you understand it or not, there are mental and spiritual laws governing your experience that function with the same consistency. You don't need to believe in them for them to affect you. Right now, as you're reading this, these laws are operating in your life. The question is whether you're using them consciously or unconsciously, whether they're working for you or against you. But awareness of the principle alone isn't enough. And this is where most people plateau. They attend the seminar, read the book, feel inspired for a week, and then nothing actually changes in their tangible reality. Why? Because they're missing the second phase, the practical method that translates this invisible law into daily application. It's the difference between knowing that electricity exists and knowing how to wire your house so the lights actually turn on. Theory without technique is just entertainment. You need the bridge, the specific practices that convert understanding into results. And the third phase is what separates genuine transformation from self-help fantasy, real evidence, not testimonials that sound too good to be true, not vague improvements that could be coincidence. We're talking about documented, measurable changes in people's health, finances, relationships, and circumstances, the kind of results that make skeptics pause and wonder what's actually happening here. When all three phases come together, the principle, the method, and the evidence, that's when you move from hoping things might change to knowing with absolute certainty that they must change because you've discovered the operating system behind reality itself. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to apply this," if you're starting to see how these three phases could unlock something profound in your own journey. The most frustrating thing I see happening over and over again is people collecting information like they're building a library, but their lives remain exactly the same. They know all the principles, they can quote the teachers, they understand the concepts intellectually, but nothing is actually changing in their bank account, their relationships, or their daily experience. And the reason is devastatingly simple. Knowing a principle isn't the same as applying it. Think about it this way. You could spend years studying electricity, how it works, the science behind it, the mathematical formulas that govern its behavior. You could become an expert on electrical theory, but if you don't know how to actually flip the switch, you're still sitting in the dark. The gap between understanding and transformation is application, and that gap is where most people's dreams go to die. This is exactly what happens with mental and spiritual laws. Someone learns that their thoughts create their reality, and they get excited for about 3 days. They think a few positive thoughts. Nothing dramatic happens immediately, and they conclude it doesn't work. But they've completely missed the point. This isn't about having a nice thought once in a while and expecting your life to magically rearrange itself. This is about developing specific daily practices that bridge the gap between the invisible principle and your visible results. The transformation doesn't happen through passive consumption. You can't just watch videos, read books, and expect your life to shift while you're sitting on the couch eating chips. That's treating this profound knowledge like entertainment, like you're watching a movie about someone else's journey. But this isn't a spectator sport. This is active knowledge that requires your full participation. Learning to master your mind is exactly like learning to play an instrument. When someone first picks up a guitar, they don't just watch videos about guitar playing and then expect to perform a concert. They practice, they experiment. They hit wrong notes, they adjust their technique, they engage with the process daily until what was once awkward and difficult becomes natural and fluid. Your consciousness works the same way. You have to turn your mind into a laboratory where you're constantly running experiments. What happens when I hold this thought for 5 minutes straight? What shifts when I replace this habitual worry with a different mental image? How does my day unfold differently when I start it with gratitude instead of complaint? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're actual experiments you run in the laboratory of your own awareness. The people who get real results, the ones whose lives actually transform in measurable ways, they're not the ones with the most knowledge. They're the ones who take one simple technique and work with it consistently until it becomes part of their operating system. They make it their own. They adapt it to their specific circumstances. They don't just understand it. Intellectually, they assimilate it into their being until it becomes as automatic as breathing. If this conversation created a sense of possibility for you, a simple like helps others find their way here and shows that depth still matters. This is the crucial distinction that separates those who transform from those who just accumulate more information. Knowledge that isn't applied is just mental clutter. But knowledge that you engage with, experiment with, refine through your own experience, that becomes power. That becomes the toolkit you use to consciously design your reality instead of just reacting to whatever shows up. So the question isn't whether you understand these principles. The question is, are you actually doing the work? Are you treating your consciousness like the sacred laboratory it is, where every thought is an experiment and every day is an opportunity to test what you're learning? Drop "I'm in the laboratory" in the comments if you're committed to actively experimenting with these principles instead of just passively consuming more information. There's a critical difference between people who transform their lives and people who just become really knowledgeable about transformation. And it all comes down to this. Are you accumulating spiritual truth like you're collecting facts for a trivia game? Or are you actually assimilating it like food that becomes part of your cells, changing you from the inside out? Think about how food works. You don't just pile it up in your stomach and expect to get stronger. Your body breaks it down, extracts the nutrients, sends those nutrients into your bloodstream, and uses them to rebuild your tissues at the cellular level. The food literally becomes you. That's assimilation. That's what has to happen with these principles if they're going to produce real change in your life. Most people are treating profound spiritual knowledge like they're stuffing it into a mental filing cabinet. They hear something powerful, think, "Oh, that's interesting," file it away, and move on to the next concept. But nothing is actually shifting in their being. Nothing is being metabolized. They're just accumulating more and more information that sits there inert, unused, making no difference whatsoever in how they show up in the world. The people who get dramatic results, and I mean truly dramatic, life-altering transformations, they approach this material with a completely different energy. They come with curiosity instead of skepticism. They're not sitting there with their arms crossed saying, "Prove it to me." They're leaning forward saying, "What if this is true? What happens when I actually try this?" That shift in orientation makes all the difference. Curiosity opens doors that skepticism keeps locked. When you're curious, you're willing to experiment, to test, to suspend judgment long enough to actually experience something. When you're skeptical, you've already decided the outcome before you even begin. And here's the thing about mental laws. They respond to the quality of your engagement. Half-hearted attempts produce half-hearted results, and then the skeptic says, "See, I knew it wouldn't work," never realizing they sabotaged the experiment before it even started. Now, I want to reveal something about the environment you're operating in that most people remain completely unconscious of their entire lives. Right now, as you're processing these words, you're not just sitting in physical space. You're actually moving through an invisible ocean, an ocean of pure thought that surrounds you, penetrates you, and responds to every mental impulse you send out into it. This isn't poetry or metaphor. This is the actual medium you're navigating every moment of every day. Just like a fish swims through water, you're swimming through this ocean of consciousness. And here's what's fascinating. Most people go through their entire lives like fish who don't even realize they're in water. They think they're just individuals moving through empty space, completely unaware of this responsive medium that's constantly receiving their mental broadcasts and reflecting them back as experience. When you wake up in the morning broadcasting worry, frustration, or fear, that ocean responds. When you move through your day, sending out thoughts of limitation, scarcity, or unworthiness, the ocean reorganizes itself around those frequencies. But when you understand that this invisible ocean exists and that it's infinitely responsive to the quality of your mental activity, you suddenly gain access to a level of creative power that most people never even imagine is possible. The breakthrough happens when you stop thinking of yourself as a separate, isolated individual fighting against a hostile world, and start recognizing yourself as a broadcasting station sending signals into a perfectly responsive universe that has no choice but to deliver experiences matching your dominant frequency. Put "I see the ocean" in the comments if this understanding is starting to shift how you perceive the invisible environment you're constantly creating within. Once you understand that you're constantly swimming in this responsive ocean of thought, something Jesus said 2,000 years ago suddenly makes perfect sense in a way that has nothing to do with religious dogma and everything to do with how reality actually operates. When he said, "Ask and you shall receive," he wasn't talking about begging some distant deity in the sky to grant you favors if you're good enough. He was describing a natural law that functions with the same mathematical precision as gravity or magnetism. But here's what most people completely miss about asking. They think it means getting on your knees and pleading for what you want, hoping that maybe, if the universe is in a good mood, your request might be granted. That's not asking in the deeper sense. To ask in the way this law actually operates means to think with determination. It means to focus your mental energy with absolute clarity and purpose on what you want to experience. Every thought you think is literally a request being broadcast into this responsive universe. The problem is that most people are sending out hundreds of contradictory requests every single day and then wondering why their lives look so chaotic and confusing. They're asking for abundance while thinking thoughts of scarcity. They're asking for love while broadcasting unworthiness. They're asking for health while maintaining mental images of illness. And the universe, being perfectly responsive but completely impartial, just keeps delivering exact matches to their dominant broadcast frequency. What makes this even more fascinating is understanding the precise mechanism through which your internal requests become external reality, because there's an exact sequence, a three-phase process that determines whether your mental activity actually manifests into your physical experience or just evaporates into nothing. It all starts with the initial spark, the thought itself. Every creation that has ever existed, from the device you're using to watch this to the building you're sitting in, began as an idea in someone's mind. That seed gets planted in the invisible ocean we talked about. But here's where most people get stuck. They have the thought, the spark ignites, and then nothing happens. They wonder why their brilliant ideas never materialize, why their desires remain unfulfilled, why their dreams stay stuck in their head. The reason is simple. A seed by itself doesn't grow. You can have the most perfect seed in the universe, but if you just toss it on dry concrete, it's going nowhere. That's where the second phase becomes absolutely crucial. The heart has to provide warmth. When your idea becomes infused with genuine emotion, when feeling enters the equation, something profound occurs. The seed comes alive. It stops being a cold, lifeless concept floating around in your mental space and transforms into a living force that wants to express itself in your world. This is the hidden truth behind why some people can think about success constantly but never experience it, while others seem to effortlessly attract everything they desire. The difference has nothing to do with intelligence, worthiness, or luck. It's all about emotional fuel. Thought without feeling is impotent, but thought charged with emotion becomes creative power, and then comes the third phase, where the invisible finally becomes visible. When you sustain that emotionally charged thought over time, when you keep feeding it with consistent feeling and attention, that energy begins to press outward into the physical dimension. It literally reorganizes the circumstances, events, people, and opportunities around you until what was once only an inner vision becomes your outer reality. Write "I'm charging my vision" in the comments if you're beginning to understand how emotion transforms mere thoughts into magnetic forces that reshape your experience. Understanding this emotional component completely changes the game, because it explains the mystery that frustrates so many people. You probably know someone who talks constantly about success, reads all the self-help books, visualizes their goals, but their life remains stubbornly stuck in the same place year after year. Meanwhile, you might know someone else who seems to barely try, yet opportunities fall into their lap, and everything they touch turns to gold. What's the difference? It's not the quality of their thoughts. It's not intelligence or education or connections. The difference is emotional fuel. The person who thinks about success all day long but never experiences it is running on empty. They're going through the mental motions with zero emotional charge behind their thoughts. Their desires are cold, intellectual concepts that never catch fire. But the person who effortlessly attracts what they want, their thoughts are soaked in feeling. When they imagine their desired outcome, they don't just see it. They feel themselves already living inside that reality with every fiber of their being. This is what it means when we say an idea becomes impregnated with genuine emotion. It's not about forcing fake enthusiasm or pretending to feel something you don't. It's about finding that authentic emotional resonance with your vision, that quality of a feeling that makes the hair on your arm stand up, that creates a visceral sense of, yes, this is mine, this is real, this is happening. When you hit that frequency, your thought stops being a passive wish and becomes a living force, actively rearranging your reality. But here's where most people unknowingly sabotage their own transformation. And once you see this pattern, you'll notice it everywhere. The single most important skill you can develop isn't more visualization or better affirmations. It's becoming the vigilant guardian of your own mind, because your consciousness has a front door, and every thought that wants to enter is essentially a visitor knocking, asking for permission to come inside and influence your experience. The question that determines the quality of your entire life is this: are you checking credentials before you let these visitors in? Or have you just left the door wide open for any random thought to waltz right in and make itself at home? Most people have absolutely no security system whatsoever, zero discernment. Their mental door is unlocked, unguarded, and unmonitored. So what happens? A worry about money knocks, and they swing the door wide open and say, "Come on in, make yourself comfortable." Before they know it, that worry has moved into their mental living room, rearranged all the furniture, and invited all its friends. Anxiety about the future, fear about scarcity, stress about bills. Then a fear about health shows up, and instead of questioning it at the threshold, they just wave it right through. That fear sets up shop, starts running the show, and suddenly they're obsessing over every symptom and researching worst-case scenarios online. An old resentment from something that happened 5 years ago decides to throw a party in their consciousness, and they not only let it in, but provide the music and refreshments. Meanwhile, your mental house becomes completely overrun by thoughts you never consciously chose to entertain. And these unwanted mental tenants are literally creating your experience, broadcasting signals into that responsive ocean we talked about, ordering up more circumstances that match their frequency. You're essentially letting squatters take over your consciousness and then wondering why your life feels out of control. The revelation that changes everything is realizing you actually have a choice here. You're not a victim of whatever random thoughts happen to show up at your door. Drop "I'm guarding the door" in the comments if you're ready to start questioning which thoughts deserve access to your consciousness and which ones need to be turned away at the threshold. Once you recognize that you're the gatekeeper of your own consciousness, the next step is developing the habit that actually puts this power into practice. And it's so simple that most people overlook it completely, yet it has the capacity to readjust your entire destiny. Throughout your day, at random moments, just pause and ask yourself one question. What thought am I letting in right now? That's it. That's the whole technique. But don't let the simplicity fool you into thinking it's not powerful. This one question, when used consistently, becomes like suddenly discovering you have a remote control for your own experience. You realize in real time what's happening in your mental space. You catch yourself in the act of entertaining thoughts that are literally programming your future in ways you don't want. Maybe you're stuck in traffic and you notice you've been rehearsing an argument with your boss for the last 10 minutes, letting resentment and frustration set up camp in your consciousness. The moment you ask the question, you become aware, and awareness gives you choice. You can decide right then to change the channel, to redirect your mental energy towards something that actually serves your highest good. Or maybe you're scrolling social media and you realize you've been comparing yourself to others for the past 20 minutes, letting thoughts of inadequacy and unworthiness parade through your mind unchallenged. The question brings you back to your power. You remember you're the decision maker here, not a passive victim of whatever thoughts happen to drift by. You get to choose what stays and what goes. But here's where I need to show you the most common way people sabotage themselves, even when they think they're doing everything right. I call it the classic fall, and it happens to millions of people every single day without them even realizing they're doing it. Picture this scenario. A man wakes up in the morning and during his quiet time, he spends 10 focused minutes visualizing prosperity. He sees abundance flowing into his life. He feels grateful for financial freedom. He imagines his bank account growing. He's genuinely excited about possibilities. So far, so good, right? He's planted a beautiful seed in that responsive ocean of thought we discussed. He's done his spiritual practice. He feels like he's on the right track. But then something fascinating happens that completely undermines all that good work. He finishes his morning visualization and immediately starts his day thinking about unpaid bills. He opens his laptop, and the first thing he does is check his bank balance with a knot of anxiety in his stomach. He has a conversation with his partner about needing to cut expenses. He reads news articles about economic uncertainty and layoffs. He scrolls past social media posts about people struggling financially and thinks, yeah, that's reality. By the time he goes to bed that night, what's the actual mental accounting? He spent maybe 10 minutes focused on prosperity and approximately 8 hours marinating in thoughts of lack, limitation, scarcity, and financial fear. What's the final balance in his consciousness? Fear predominates. Scarcity wins. Limitation is the dominant broadcast. And here's the brutal truth that most people never grasp. The Lord doesn't respond to your best intentions or your morning prayers. It doesn't give you extra credit for those 10 minutes of visualization. It responds to whatever energy you're consistently feeding it throughout the entire day. When you mix two contradictory orders like this, prosperity in the morning and scarcity all day long, you're essentially trying to drive with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, then wondering why you're not moving forward. Put I see my contradictions in the comments if you're starting to recognize where you might be cancelling out your own good with this exact pattern. This is why so many sincere, well-meaning people get frustrated with these principles. They think they're doing everything right because they have their vision boards up, they're saying their affirmations, they're doing their morning meditation. But they don't realize they're unconsciously cancelling out their own good with the background chatter of their daily thinking. They're broadcasting one frequency for 10 minutes and a completely different frequency for the rest of their waking hours. The law operating here is incredibly precise. It doesn't judge whether your thoughts are good or bad, positive or negative, worthy or unworthy. It simply responds to whatever signal you're broadcasting most consistently. It's like a radio that tunes into whatever frequency has the strongest signal. If fear and limitation are getting 16 hours of airtime, and abundance is getting 10 minutes, guess which station is playing in your life? The impact of recognizing this pattern can't be overstated. Once you see how you might be unconsciously undermining your own progress, you can start making different moment-by-moment decisions. You begin to understand that every single thought is actually a vote for the kind of life you want to experience. And when you consistently vote for what you want instead of what you fear, that's when the real transformation starts happening. Now let me share with you a technique that demonstrates just how powerful this principle becomes when you apply it to the people in your life, especially the challenging relationships that drain your energy and test your patience. Because what most people don't realize is that the same law governing your personal transformation also governs how others show up in your experience. There was a mother who was at her absolute wit's end with her 14-year-old son. This wasn't just typical teenage attitude or minor rebellion. We're talking about serious behavioral issues, acting out at school, disrespectful language at home, hanging around with kids who were clearly bad influences. She had tried everything the conventional wisdom suggested: lectures, punishments, taking away privileges, heart-to-heart conversations, family therapy. Nothing worked. In fact, it seemed like the more she tried to correct his behavior, the worse he became, like she was pushing against a wall that just kept getting thicker. When she learned about what I call the silent treatment technique, she was skeptical, but she was also desperate enough to try something radically different from everything that had already failed. And I need to clarify right now, this has nothing whatsoever to do with ignoring someone or giving them the cold shoulder. That's manipulation. This is actually the complete opposite. This is about treating someone mentally with the highest vision of who they could be. 3 times each day, this mother would find a quiet moment and practice a simple but profound exercise. She would visualize her son exactly as she wanted to see him: courteous, engaged with his studies, genuinely happy. She would see him participating actively in class discussions, treating his teachers with respect, coming home with a smile on his face, asking thoughtful questions about his homework. She would see the best version of him, the version that was buried underneath all the acting out and rebellion, But here's the crucial part that made this work. She also committed to something even harder than the visualization. She made a decision to refuse discussing his problems with teachers, neighbors, family members, or even her own friends. Every single time someone wanted to commiserate about his difficult behavior, every time another parent mentioned his bad attitude, she would politely but firmly change the subject. Type, "I'm holding the vision," in the comments. If you can sense how this shift from focusing on problems to holding a higher vision could transform some relationship in your own life. This commitment to guarding her words turned out to be just as important as the visualization itself, maybe even more important. Because every time she had complained about his behavior to someone else, every time she had vented her frustration or recounted his latest infraction, she was actually reinforcing the very pattern she desperately wanted to change. She was feeding energy to the image of him as a problem child, broadcasting that frequency into the responsive universe, and essentially ordering up more of the same behavior. The results were nothing short of remarkable, and they happened faster than anyone expected. By the third day, just 72 hours into this practice, she received a note from his teacher commenting on his improved participation in class. The teacher was genuinely surprised by the sudden shift in his attitude and engagement, mentioning that he had volunteered to answer questions and even helped another student who was struggling. Within a week, his entire demeanor at home had transformed. He started asking if he could go to the library. He began showing interest in his homework without being nagged. The angry, rebellious energy that had filled their house for months just seemed to evaporate. Now here's what's absolutely fascinating about this transformation, and it reveals something profound about how influence actually works. The mother didn't manipulate her son. She didn't have any secret conversations with him about changing his behavior. She didn't bribe him with rewards or threaten him with new consequences. She didn't use any external pressure whatsoever. There was no punishment, no intervention, no direct action taken in the physical world. What she did was change the mental cause, and then she stepped back and allowed the law to execute the rest. She stopped feeding energy to the image of him as a problem child, the image she had been unconsciously reinforcing every time she worried about him, complained about him, or discussed his issues with others. Instead, she consistently fed energy to a completely different image, the image of a successful, happy, engaged teenager who was living up to his highest potential. This reveals something most people never understand about how we influence the people around us. We tend to think that changing someone else requires direct action, talking to them, reasoning with them, punishing or rewarding them, convincing them to behave differently. We believe in the power of external intervention, but what this mother discovered is that the deepest level of influence happens through the sustained quality of your mental attention. When you consistently see someone in their highest potential, when you refuse to reinforce their negative patterns with your thoughts and words, when you hold a clear vision of who they could be rather than who they're currently being, you create an invisible invitation for their better nature to emerge. You're literally changing the energetic environment around them, and because they're also swimming in that same responsive ocean of thought, they begin to respond to the new frequency you're broadcasting about them. The transformation didn't happen because she forced it. It happened because she aligned her consciousness with a higher possibility and stopped contradicting that vision with worry, complaint, and negative reinforcement. Right energy creates change in the comments. If you're grasping how shifting your mental and emotional broadcast about someone could transform the entire dynamic of that relationship. Now, let me give you a practical technique that you can start using immediately to test these principles in your own life. This isn't something that requires hours of practice or special training. It's designed to fit seamlessly into your daily routine. Yet the impact can be absolutely transformative when you apply it with genuine commitment. Here's the first critical decision you need to make. Choose one specific issue that's been weighing on your mind lately. Not 10 different problems. Not every area of your life that needs improvement. One thing. This is where most people sabotage themselves before they even begin. They scatter their mental energy across multiple concerns simultaneously and then wonder why nothing changes. That's like trying to dig 10 shallow holes instead of one deep well. You never hit water. Pick the one thing that would make the most significant difference in your life if it were resolved. Maybe it's a financial situation that's keeping you up at night. Maybe it's a health concern that's been draining your energy. Maybe it's a relationship challenge that's affecting everything else. Maybe it's a career decision that feels stuck. Whatever it is, identify it clearly and commit to focusing your practice on this one area. Once you've identified your specific issue, you're going to engage in what I call focused mental rehearsal, and the timing here is crucial. For exactly 1 minute, not 5 minutes, not 30 seconds, but 1 full minute, you're going to form the simplest possible idea that expresses your desired result. Notice I said simplest, not most elaborate or detailed. Keep it clean, keep it simple, keep it vivid. If your issue is about money, don't create some complex scenario involving lottery wins or complicated business deals. Just see yourself financially secure, relaxed about money, comfortable in your ability to handle your needs and desires. If it's about health, don't visualize complicated medical procedures or dramatic healing scenes. Simply see yourself vibrant, energetic, moving through life with ease and strength in your body. If it's about relationships, see harmony, understanding, genuine connection. The power is in the clarity and simplicity of the image, not in adding more details or making it more elaborate. You want one clean mental photograph that your consciousness can hold steady without effort or strain. This is the architecture phase, where you're drawing the blueprint in your mind with absolute precision. But here's where most people miss the mark completely, and this is the difference between mental fantasy and actual manifestation. For the second minute, another full 60 seconds, you're not just going to observe your desired result like you're watching someone else's movie. You're going to feel yourself already living within it. This distinction is everything. Step into that picture. Don't stand outside looking at it. Inhabit it. Feel the relief that floods through your body when the financial pressure is gone. Feel the gratitude that fills your chest when your health is restored. Feel the satisfaction and peace that comes from the relationship being healed. Let that emotional reality saturate every cell of your body as if it's happening right now in this present moment, not someday in the future. This is where thought becomes charged with the emotional fuel we talked about earlier. This is where the seed gets the warmth it needs to germinate. You're not pretending or faking emotion. You're actually creating an authentic, felt experience in your body and nervous system that matches your desired outcome. Drop "I'm practicing this now" in the comments if you're ready to commit to this simple but powerful 1 minute plus 1 minute practice with a specific issue in your life. After you've completed those 2 minutes of focused mental rehearsal, 1 minute of clear vision, and 1 minute of deep feeling, there's a final step that seals the entire process and releases it into the creative mechanism of the universe. This is where you make a declaration that acknowledges both your clear intention and your willingness to trust something greater than your limited perspective. The phrase I recommend is simple but incredibly powerful. This or something better manifests now under grace and perfectly. Let those words sink in for a moment, because each part of this declaration serves a specific purpose. When you say this, you're being clear about what you want. You're not being vague or wishy-washy. You've identified your desire and claimed it. But when you add "or something better," You're creating space for the universe to surprise you with possibilities you might not have even imagined from your current vantage. A point. Sometimes what we think we want is actually a limited version of what's truly available to us. Sometimes our human perspective can only see one pathway to our good, but infinite intelligence can see 1,000 pathways we haven't even considered. So you're saying yes to your vision while simultaneously staying open to something even more aligned with your highest good. The phrase under grace is equally important because it removes the struggle and strain from the manifestation process. You're not trying to force outcomes or manipulate circumstances through sheer willpower. You're aligning with a flow, with an intelligence that knows how to orchestrate events and opportunities in ways that serve everyone involved, and perfectly acknowledges that the timing, the method, and the outcome will unfold in divine order, even if it doesn't match your human timeline or expectations. This sealing declaration transforms your mental work from desperate wishing into confident knowing. You've done your part. You've planted the seed with clarity and feeling. Now you're releasing it to the creative soil of consciousness with complete trust. Now, I want to reveal something that most people completely miss about why their efforts to change their lives keep failing despite their best intentions. There's a fundamental principle at work here that explains why some people can take massive action and see minimal results, while others make small shifts and experience dramatic transformation. The principle is this: a turbid source cannot give clean water. Think about what that means. If you have a spring that's contaminated at its source, it doesn't matter how far downstream you go, the water will still be polluted. You can try to filter it, treat it, purify it at various points along the stream, but as long as the source remains contaminated, you're fighting a losing battle. The solution isn't to keep treating the symptoms downstream. The solution is to clean the source itself. Your consciousness is the source. Your dominant thought patterns and emotional states are the spring from which your entire experience flows. If that source remains cloudy, conflicted, and contaminated with fear, doubt, resentment, and limitation, then no amount of external effort, no amount of working harder, trying different strategies, or forcing outcomes will produce lasting clarity and abundance in your life. This is why people can hustle themselves into exhaustion, implement every productivity hack, follow every business strategy, and still end up stuck in the same patterns. They're trying to purify the stream while ignoring the contaminated source. They're addressing the effects while leaving the cause untouched. But when you clean the source, when you purify your thought at the level of consciousness itself, the entire channel purifies itself automatically. When your internal state becomes clear, aligned, and charged with positive expectation, your external circumstances begin to reorganize themselves to match that inner clarity. It's not that you stop taking action. It's that your actions become inspired rather than desperate, strategic rather than scattered, effective rather than exhausting. The breakthrough happens when you finally understand that your primary work isn't out there in the world. Your primary work is in here, in the invisible laboratory of your mind, cleaning the source so that everything flowing from it carries the frequency of what you actually want to experience. Type "cleaning the source" in the comments if you're recognizing where you might have been fighting downstream battles while leaving the contaminated source of your consciousness untouched. There's an ancient promise that reveals something extraordinary about how this whole system actually operates, and when you truly understand it, you'll never look at your imagination the same way again. The promise was given to Abraham thousands of years ago, and it contained a hidden instruction manual for how reality responds to consciousness. The promise said, "All the land that you see, I will give to you." Most people read that and think it's just about physical territory, about real estate and geographical boundaries, but that's missing the profound truth encoded in those words. This was describing a fundamental law about the relationship between your inner vision and your outer world. Here's what it's really saying. The universe is literally obligated to deliver what you're capable of seeing with sufficient clarity and persistence. Let that sink in for a moment. We're not talking about hoping or wishing or crossing your fingers and waiting for luck. We're talking about a cosmic obligation, a binding contract between your consciousness and reality itself. When you can truly see something, not just intellectually understand it, but viscerally experience it in your mind's eye with clarity and emotional conviction, the forces of creation begin reorganizing themselves to make that vision manifest in your physical experience. This isn't mystical nonsense. This is describing the actual mechanics of how thought becomes form. The universe operates according to laws, just like physics and chemistry. And one of those laws is this. What you can see clearly and sustain consistently in your consciousness must eventually appear in your circumstances. It's not optional. It's not dependent on worthiness or luck. It's mechanical. But here's where most people get stuck, and it's crucial that you understand this obstacle because it's probably operating in your life right now without you even realizing it. The problem isn't lack of effort. It's not that people aren't trying hard enough, or visualizing long enough, or wanting it badly enough. The real obstacle is what I call the double exposure problem, and it's absolutely everywhere once you start looking for it. Remember old-fashioned cameras, where if you accidentally took two photos on the same piece of film, you'd end up with both images blended together in a confusing mess where neither one is clear or distinct. That's exactly what's happening in most people's minds when they try to create change. They'll spend 10 minutes in the morning visualizing abundance and financial freedom, creating what feels like a clear, beautiful picture of prosperity. But then they spend the rest of their day, the other 14 waking hours, with a completely different image running in the background like static interference. They're consciously visualizing success while unconsciously maintaining their old mental image of struggle. They're seeing themselves healthy in their meditation while harboring persistent fears about their body breaking down throughout the day. They're imagining harmonious relationships in their morning practice while replaying old conflicts and disappointments in their mind during every idle moment. Under this kind of confusion, under this double exposure, where two contradictory images are being broadcast simultaneously, the mental law can only reproduce unstable shadows. It's like trying to tune into a radio station when there's interference from another frequency. You get bits and pieces of what you want, mixed with static and competing signals. The result is an experience that feels inconsistent, unpredictable, and deeply frustrating. This explains the mystery that haunts so many people who practice visualization and affirmations for years. Without seeing significant changes, they're not failing because the principles don't work. They're getting mixed results because they're sending mixed signals. Their conscious mind might be projecting images of success for brief periods, but their subconscious mind is still running the old programming of fear, doubt, and limitation for the majority of their waking hours. The journey toward genuine mastery involves learning to clean up that mental film so you're projecting one clear, consistent image instead of a confusing double exposure that creates nothing but shadows and half-formed manifestations. Write single vision activated in the comments if you're starting to recognize where you might be creating double exposures in your own consciousness and you're ready to commit to broadcasting one clear signal. Jesus himself gave us perhaps the most precise instruction about this whole process when he said something that most people read right past without understanding the profound technical guidance it contains. He said, if your eye is single, your whole body will be full of light. And when you decode what he's actually describing here, it becomes a complete operating manual for manifestation. When he talked about the eye, he wasn't referring to your physical vision. He was talking about your imagination, your inner sight, your ability to see possibilities that don't yet exist in your current reality. This is the faculty you use when you visualize, when you dream, when you contemplate what could be. And the word single is absolutely crucial here because it means undivided, unified, focused on one clear image rather than scattered across multiple conflicting pictures. When your inner eye is single, when your imagination is completely aligned around one consistent vision without contradiction or interference, then your whole body, your entire experience, becomes full of light. Everything starts working in harmony. Opportunities flow effortlessly. Relationships improve naturally. Health flourishes without force. Abundance appears from unexpected directions. It's like suddenly all the scattered pieces of your life click into perfect alignment because you've finally given the universe one clear, unambiguous instruction. But here's what happens when your inner vision isn't single. When the image you're holding is unstable and constantly shifting between what you want and what you fear, the result becomes blurry, indistinct, powerless. You get mixed outcomes, partial successes, the frustrating experience of 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And when your images are actually contradictory, imagining success while expecting failure, visualizing health while anticipating illness, the result literally dissolves. You end up with nothing clear manifesting because you've given contradictory instructions that cancel each other out. This is exactly why developing what I call precision visualization is so critical to your transformation journey. Most people approach visualization casually, like daydreaming or wishful thinking. They kind of see something, sort of feel something, maybe focus for 30 seconds before their mind wanders to what they need to buy at the grocery store. But when you understand that your imagination is actually the control panel for your reality, you start treating it with the respect and focused attention it deserves. Now, let me give you a specific technique that makes this process incredibly concrete and effective, something you can practice tonight before you go to sleep. Picture yourself standing in front of a perfectly clean blackboard, not a whiteboard, not a computer screen, but an old-fashioned blackboard that's been completely erased without a single mark or smudge remaining. This clean slate represents the pure potential of your life, waiting for you to consciously write upon it. With the chalk of your mind, you're going to begin drawing the finished result of what you want to experience. Notice I said finished result, not the process, not the struggle, not the steps you think you need to take, just the end result as if it's already accomplished, already your reality, already done. If you want better health, draw yourself vibrant, energetic, moving through life with ease and strength. If you want financial freedom, draw yourself relaxed about money, abundant, secure in your resources. If you want fulfilling relationships, draw yourself surrounded by love, understanding, genuine connection. Keep your drawing simple and clear, but vivid enough that you can see every important detail. What are you wearing? What expression is on your face? What's the quality of energy around you? Make it real enough that it feels like you're looking at an actual photograph of your future self, rather than some vague, fuzzy concept. The more specific and tangible your mental drawing becomes, the more powerfully it imprints itself on your subconscious mind. This isn't complicated. This isn't requiring artistic skill. This is simply using your imagination with intention and clarity to create a blueprint that your consciousness can work with to reorganize your external circumstances. Drop "drawing my result" in the comments if you can already see yourself using this blackboard technique tonight to create a clear mental blueprint of what you want to manifest in your life. Once you've completed your mental drawing on that blackboard, once you've created a clear, vivid picture of your desired outcome, there's a crucial next step that most people skip, and it's the difference between creating a lifeless image and activating a living force. You need to step back from your blackboard and contemplate what you've just created. Not analyze it, not question it, not start picking it apart with your logical mind, just contemplate it with your full awareness. This is where the magic really begins to happen. As you hold that image in your mind's eye, just observing what you've drawn, something profound occurs. Natural feeling starts to arise from within you. You don't force it or manufacture it. You simply allow the emotions that want to emerge to flow freely through your being. Feel the satisfaction of having what you visualized. Feel the relief washing over you as that problem is finally resolved. Feel the joy bubbling up as you experience this new reality. Feel the gratitude flooding your chest as if this result is already yours, already accomplished, already living and breathing in your world. This emotional component is what gives life to the image. Remember, thought is the seed, but feeling is the warmth that makes it germinate. Your mental drawing is just architecture until emotion breathes life into it. This is the moment when your visualization transforms from a cold concept into a warm, living possibility that your subconscious mind can actually work with. The feeling is the fuel. The feeling is the activating force. The feeling is what turns potential into momentum. And here's something beautiful about this process. You're not pretending or faking emotion. When you've created a clear enough mental image, the feeling arises naturally because your nervous system doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Your body responds to the mental picture with authentic emotion, and that authentic emotion becomes the carrier wave that broadcasts your desire into the responsive universe. But then comes what might seem like a counterintuitive step, yet it's perhaps the most important part of the entire technique. After you've felt the fullness of your vision, after you've allowed those emotions to saturate your being, you're going to mentally erase the blackboard completely, wipe it clean, let the image dissolve back into pure potential. Now, this might sound like you're giving up or abandoning your vision, but it's actually the exact opposite. This erasure is an act of profound trust and release. You're not clinging to the image with desperate attachment, white-knuckling it with anxiety about whether it will manifest. You're releasing it to the creative power of the universe with complete confidence. You're essentially saying, I've given you a clear instruction. I've shown you exactly what I desire. I've felt it fully. Now I trust you to bring it about in the perfect way and the perfect timing. This release is critical because attachment and desperation actually block manifestation. When you're clutching your desire with fear that it might not happen, when you're constantly checking to see if it's working yet, when you're micromanaging the universe's delivery system, you're actually interfering with the natural unfolding process. It's like planting a seed and then digging it up every day to see if it's growing. Your anxious interference prevents the very growth you're hoping for. But when you can visualize clearly, feel deeply, and then release completely, you're working in harmony with how creation actually functions. You're planting the seed with care and precision, providing it with the emotional warmth it needs, and then trusting the soil to do what soil does naturally, transform seeds into plants without your anxious supervision. This technique works because it gives your subconscious mind a concrete, emotionally charged experience of your desired outcome, while simultaneously releasing any resistance or desperation that might block its manifestation. Type, I trust the process in the comments if you're ready to practice this complete cycle. Visualize clearly, feel deeply, and release fully, rather than holding on with anxious attachment. Now, let me share with you A real-world transformation that perfectly demonstrates how powerful this blackboard technique becomes when you apply it with genuine commitment and consistency. There was a man named Federico who owned a small stationery store, and when I say his business was failing, I mean it was circling the drain. Sales had dropped to almost nothing. Customers were scarce. Every day felt like a battle just to keep the doors open. He was genuinely considering closing down permanently and walking away from years of hard work. When Federico learned about the blackboard visualization technique, he was honestly skeptical. How could something so simple possibly turn around a business that was hemorrhaging money and losing customers to big chain stores and online retailers? But he was desperate enough to try anything, and desperation sometimes opens the door to breakthroughs that skepticism keeps locked. Every single night for 20 minutes before turning off the lights in his store, Federico would practice this technique with absolute dedication. He would stand there in the quiet space and mentally see himself at that blackboard, drawing a very specific scene. He visualized customers lined up at his counter, people eagerly browsing his shelves, hands reaching for products, conversations happening. And most importantly, he saw and heard the cash register making that beautiful sound as sale after sale was completed. He would see himself confidently signing substantial bank deposit slips at the end of each day. The results started appearing faster than anyone expected. On the third day of his practice, just 72 hours into this mental work, a teacher walked into his store and asked him to supply a complete list of school materials for 40 students. It was the largest single order he had received in months, maybe years. On the sixth day, a company representative who had never entered his store before purchased an entire inventory of notebooks for his staff. By the end of the first week, his sales had literally doubled, and within a month Federico was so busy that he had to hire an assistant to help handle the increased flow of customers. But here's what made Federico's approach so incredibly effective, and why some people get amazing results with visualization, while others see little change. Federico didn't create static snapshots in his mind. He didn't just see a frozen picture of a successful store. Instead, he added movement and life to his visualization. He watched customers walking through his store in his mind's eye. He heard the sound of conversations, the rustle of paper, the beep of the register. He felt the energy of activity, the buzz of a thriving business, the warmth of human interaction happening in his space. This distinction between static and dynamic visualization is crucial. Dynamic images, scenes that move, that include sound, that feel alive with energy, have exponentially more creative power than still photographs in your mind. Why? Because your subconscious mind responds much more powerfully to experiences that feel real and immediate. When you create a living, breathing scene in your imagination rather than a lifeless snapshot, your nervous system engages with it as if it's actually happening. Your brain releases the same neurochemicals. Your body generates the same physiological responses, and your consciousness broadcasts a much stronger signal into that responsive ocean of thought. Federico later said something that reveals the essence of how this works. I didn't change the store window display. I didn't run new advertisements. I didn't slash prices or implement some new marketing strategy. I only changed the film that was running in my head. That statement captures the profound truth we've been exploring. Your external circumstances aren't the real issue. The internal image is what needs transformation. Put dynamic vision activated in the comments if you're grasping how bringing movement, sound, and aliveness to your mental images could multiply their creative power. While visualization creates the blueprint for your transformation, there's another element that works in perfect harmony with your mental imagery to accelerate manifestation in ways that might surprise you. It's something you're already doing every moment of every day, but most people never realize they can use it consciously as a tool for transformation. I'm talking about your breath itself. There's a technique that takes just 30 seconds, requires no special equipment or training, and you can practice it anywhere, sitting at your desk, lying in bed, standing in line at the store. Yet this brief practice can shift your entire emotional state and align your feelings with your desires in the most natural, effortless way possible. Here's exactly how it works. Start by exhaling completely, pushing all the air out of your lungs as if you're releasing everything that's been weighing you down. Every worry, every doubt, every ounce of tension you've been carrying in your body. Let it all go with that out-breath. Then, as you slowly inhale, imagine that you're breathing in pure life force, divine energy, the very essence of creation itself flowing into your lungs and spreading throughout your entire system. Feel this revitalizing energy filling not just your chest but every cell in your body. Here's where the transformation actually happens. During that pause when you're holding your breath, when that life-giving energy is circulating through your system, this is the moment to feel your desire as already fulfilled. Don't visualize it. Don't think about it. Simply feel it. If you want abundance, feel abundant right now in this moment. If you want perfect health, feel completely healthy as you hold that breath. If you want peace, feel utterly peaceful. Let that sensation permeate your entire being while the breath is suspended. Finally, as you exhale, release that breath with a profound sense of gratitude, as if you're saying thank you for something wonderful that has already been given to you, already received, already yours. This isn't gratitude for what might happen someday. It's appreciation for what you're experiencing energetically in this very moment. The beauty of this breathing technique is that it completely bypasses all the mental resistance and doubt that usually interfere with manifestation work. When you're focused on the physical sensation of breathing and working with your body's natural rhythms, your analytical mind steps aside and allows your heart to lead. You're not trying to convince yourself of anything or force belief where doubt exists. You're simply creating an authentic emotional experience that aligns with your desires. Let me share a powerful example of how this simple practice produced remarkable results for someone dealing with a chronic condition that had resisted every conventional approach. There was a woman named Anita who worked as a secretary and had been suffering from debilitating migraines for 4 long years. These weren't occasional headaches. We're talking about intense pain that would knock her out for days at a time, affecting her work, her relationships, her entire quality of life. Anita had tried every conventional treatment available, medications that left her groggy and disconnected, dietary changes that made no difference, stress management techniques that provided temporary relief at best, expensive specialist consultations that offered little hope. Nothing provided lasting healing, and she was reaching a point of desperation where the pain was starting to feel like a permanent prison she'd never escape. When she learned about this breathing certainty technique, something about its simplicity appealed to her. She didn't need to buy anything, change her entire lifestyle, or convince anyone else to support her. She could practice this quietly, privately, consistently. Every morning before checking her email, Anita would practice those conscious breaths. During the retention phase, she would visualize her head feeling light as a feather and silently affirm, "Divine life circulates freely through every nerve and vessel in my body. My mind rests in peace, and my brain functions perfectly." The breakthrough came on day 4. The usual buzzing sensation that always preceded her migraines, that warning sign she had learned to dread, simply didn't appear. She made it through her entire workday, feeling clear and focused. That weekend became her first pain-free weekend in months. Within a week of consistent practice, the migraines that had controlled her life for 4 years had completely disappeared. Write "breath as medicine" in the comments if you're ready to explore how This simple breathing practice could unlock healing and transformation in areas of your life that have resisted every other approach. While the mind conceives your vision and feeling, provides the heat that brings it to life, there's a third element that actually launches your manifestation into physical reality. And most people are using this power unconsciously in ways that sabotage everything they're trying to create. I'm talking about the power of your spoken word, and it's so potent that ancient wisdom tells us plainly, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Your spoken word, whether audible or silent, is what actually projects your internal creation into the external world. Think of it as the delivery system for your consciousness. The mind conceives the idea, feeling heats it up and gives it life, and the word launches it into manifestation. This is the complete sequence: conception, incubation, and birth. Nothing comes to the scene of your experience until it's pronounced, either internally through your private mental conversations or externally through what you say out loud. This means that every word you speak is essentially an order being placed with the universe, a request for more of whatever you're describing. And here's where it gets uncomfortable for most people. You're placing orders all day long, mostly unconsciously, mostly for things you don't actually want. Every complaint is an order for more situations to complain about. Every expression of limitation is a request for continued limitation. Every casual declaration of difficulty is literally programming more difficulty into your future experience. Most people completely underestimate this aspect of creation. They'll spend time carefully visualizing their desires and feeling into their dreams, but then they'll spend the rest of the day speaking words that contradict everything they've been trying to build. They affirm abundance in their morning practice and then spend their afternoon conversations complaining about not having enough money. They visualize perfect health and then describe their symptoms in detail to anyone who will listen. They see themselves successful and then casually joke about how nothing ever works out for them. What they don't realize is that this unconscious speaking is actually sealing their experience. Every time you describe limitation, you're literally ordering more of it from the responsive universe. Every time you speak about struggle, you're requesting additional struggle. Every time you voice fear or doubt, you're canceling out all the positive mental work you've been doing in your quiet moments. Let me show you exactly how this works through the story of a man named Arturo, a traveling salesman who was watching his commissions steadily decline month after month. His products were good, his prices were competitive, he was working just as hard as he always had. But somehow doors kept closing in his face, appointments kept getting cancelled, and sales that seemed promising would mysteriously fall through. When someone finally analyzed his daily routine, they discovered something fascinating. Arturo had developed an unconscious habit of muttering the same phrase every single time he encountered any kind of obstacle or challenge. Whether it was raining, too hot, too cold, windy or cloudy, he would automatically say under his breath, "With this bad weather, nobody opens the door." He was saying this phrase 20, sometimes 30 times a day, as he drove from appointment to appointment, completely unaware that he was doing it. What Arturo didn't realize was that this seemingly innocent complaint was actually a powerful decree, a command being broadcast into the responsive ocean of consciousness we talked about earlier. Every time he spoke those words, he was literally ordering his reality to match that expectation. He was programming his subconscious mind to expect closed doors, and his subconscious was faithfully delivering exactly that experience, regardless of weather conditions. The transformation began when Arturo made one simple but profound decision. He would catch himself every time that automatic phrase wanted to emerge, and he would replace it with a completely different declaration. "God opens the way, and clients receive me with interest." At first it felt awkward and artificial, but he committed to the practice with discipline. Within 2 weeks of consistently speaking this new, Order instead of the old complaint. His commissions had tripled. The weather conditions hadn't changed one bit, but suddenly people were answering their doors with smiles. Conversations were flowing naturally, and sales were closing effortlessly. Type "words create worlds" in the comments if you're starting to recognize how your casual daily speech might be ordering experiences you don't actually want. But what happens when your mind gets so caught up in worry and anxiety that you can't seem to redirect your thoughts, no matter how hard you try? There are moments when the mental chatter becomes so loud, so persistent, so overwhelming that all your visualization techniques and positive affirmations feel completely powerless against the storm raging in your head. You're spinning in circles, replaying worst-case scenarios, mentally arguing with people who aren't even there, catastrophizing about futures that haven't happened and probably never will. This is where a technique that's been around for centuries becomes incredibly practical and immediately applicable. It's based on a simple but profound instruction: be still and know. When your mind gets trapped in a cycle of worry, when you're caught in mental quicksand where every attempt to think your way out just pulls you deeper, there's a way to break free in less than 90 seconds. Instead of fighting against your worried thoughts or trying to replace them with positive ones, which often just creates more mental struggle, you completely turn your attention away from the problem and concentrate it entirely on something greater than your personal concerns. You stop wrestling with the issue and start resting in a larger truth. This isn't about denying your problems exist or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about recognizing that when you're trapped in worry, you're not actually solving anything. You're just feeding energy to the very thing you don't want. The technique is elegantly simple. For 60 to 90 seconds, you release your grip on the worry entirely and allow your attention to rest in the awareness of divine presence, infinite wisdom, peace that surpasses understanding, or whatever concept represents ultimate power and love to you. You're not asking for anything specific. You're not trying to figure anything out or force a solution. You're simply creating space for clarity to emerge naturally by stepping completely out of problem consciousness and into solution consciousness. Let me show you exactly how powerful this simple practice becomes when applied in real-world crisis situations through the story of a woman named Clara, who was facing every parent's worst nightmare. She was locked in a bitter custody battle for her 8-year-old daughter, and the opposing legal team was presenting witnesses and evidence that made her genuinely fear she might lose custody entirely. Clara had tried everything her anxious mind could think of. She hired better lawyers, gathered character witnesses, prepared detailed documentation. But the more she focused on building her case, the more consumed she became with fear and desperation. She was spending entire nights lying awake, mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios, trying to anticipate every possible attack from the other side. The stress was eating her alive, and she could feel herself becoming reactive and emotional in ways that weren't helping her situation at all. When she learned about this golden key technique, she was honestly skeptical that something so simple could make any difference in such a complex legal nightmare, but she was desperate enough to try anything. Right there, while waiting in line at the post office, she decided to test it. She turned her attention completely away from judges, lawyers, custody arrangements, and all the legal complications, and spent just over a minute silently repeating one simple phrase: God is love. She allowed that truth to fill her consciousness while refusing to engage with the anxious thoughts clamoring for her attention. Each time her mind tried to return to the legal battle, she gently redirected it back to that simple truth and the feeling of being surrounded by infinite love and wisdom. She practiced this throughout the day, on the bus, while preparing dinner, whenever the familiar anxiety started rising in her chest. Instead of mentally arguing her case over and over, she was creating space for a solution to emerge that was beyond her personal ability to orchestrate. 2 days later, she received a call from the opposing attorney that changed everything. Through mediation services, they had reached an amicable agreement that gave Clara Ara primary custody with generous visitation rights. There would be no trial, no further legal battles, no devastating testimony. The resolution appeared seemingly out of nowhere, as if the case had resolved itself in the invisible realm before any papers were signed. Drop golden key in hand in the comments if you're ready to use this technique the next time worry threatens to consume your peace and cloud your ability to see solutions. Clara Ara's story reveals something profound about how healing and transformation actually work at the deepest level. And this principle applies whether we're talking about legal situations, relationship conflicts, health challenges, or any other area where you're experiencing discord. The breakthrough happens when you step out of your limited perspective and allow infinite intelligence to orchestrate solutions that you never could have forced through personal effort alone. This brings us to one of the most powerful applications of these principles, the area of physical healing. Because your body isn't just a mechanical system that randomly breaks down and needs fixing from outside sources. Your body is actually an expression of consciousness, and it's constantly receiving instructions from your mental and emotional state about how to function. When you experience illness or physical discord, what's really happening? At the deepest level, illness is essentially a message from your body's intelligence saying, the mind has deviated from harmony. Your body is constantly trying to heal itself, working tirelessly to return to perfect function and optimal health. That's its natural state, its default setting. When that healing process seems blocked or ineffective, there's usually some kind of mental or emotional interference disrupting the natural flow of life force through your system. This doesn't mean you should ignore medical care or blame yourself for health challenges. It means recognizing that your consciousness plays a crucial role in creating the internal environment where healing can either flourish or struggle. When you align your thoughts and feelings with the vision of perfect health, when you stop feeding energy to images of illness and limitation, you're essentially removing obstacles and allowing your body's innate intelligence to do what it naturally wants to do, restore you to wholeness. Now, I want to share with you a specific technique that has produced remarkable results for thousands of people when applied to one of the most anxiety-producing areas of modern life, money. Because the way most people think about finances is completely backwards, and once you understand the hidden truth about how abundance actually flows, you can stop struggling and start allowing prosperity to find you. There's in practice so simple it almost seems too easy to work, yet it's been transforming financial situations for people from all walks of life, regardless of their current circumstances. Here's exactly how it works. You take a regular envelope and write down the exact amount of money you would like to have flowing into your life each month. Be specific, not a range, not enough to get by, but a precise figure that would give you genuine financial freedom and peace of mind. This number should feel expansive, but not so outrageous that your mind immediately rejects it as impossible. You want to stretch into growth without triggering total disbelief. Place that piece of paper inside the envelope and seal it. Now comes the crucial part that makes this technique so powerful. Every single day, you place your hands on that envelope and speak a blessing over it. God, the infinite source, supplies this amount perfectly under grace and harmoniously. You're not begging, you're not pleading. You're making a declaration based on the fundamental abundance of creation itself. But here's what you absolutely cannot do if you want this to work. You don't open the envelope to check on your progress. You don't spend your day analyzing whether it's working or wondering how the money will come. You don't share the specific amount with others or ask for their opinions about whether it's realistic. You simply bless the envelope once daily and then go about your life trusting the process completely. This practice works because it programs your subconscious mind with a clear, consistent message about your financial reality. Every day you're depositing a new image of abundance into your mental bank account, and over time, this new programming begins to influence your decisions, your confidence, your ability to recognize opportunities, and even the way you carry yourself in financial conversations. The universe responds to this shift in remarkable ways. Opportunities begin appearing that you never noticed before. People mention possibilities that spark your interest. Unexpected payments arrive. Expenses that seemed unavoidable somehow resolve themselves. Write, envelope sealed, trust activated in the comments if you're ready to commit to this daily practice and discover how shifting your internal money consciousness can transform your external financial reality. And there you have it, the complete framework for transforming your life from the inside out, using principles that have been quietly reshaping reality for those who understand how consciousness actually works. If you've made it this far in our conversation, that tells me something important about who you are. You're not just looking for quick fixes or surface-level motivation. You're someone who's genuinely ready to do the inner work that creates lasting outer change. That's rare, and it matters. If this deep dive into how your mind creates your reality resonated with you, I'd love to have you as part of this community. Hit that subscribe button, because every week I'm sharing insights and techniques that go beyond the usual self-help noise. Practical tools you can actually use to consciously design the life you want to experience. Leave me a comment saying, "This message was meant for me," if you feel like this content arrived in your life at exactly the right moment. I genuinely read these comments, and I'm always curious about how these principles are landing with people who are serious about transformation. And if this conversation created a sense of connection and possibility for you, a simple like on the video means more than you might think. It helps others who are searching for these answers find their way here, and it tells me that depth and substance still matter in a world of superficial content. There's a video right here that takes everything we've discussed even deeper, exploring what to do when resistance shows up, how to handle doubt when it arises, and how to maintain these practices when life gets challenging. Click and continue with me over there, because what we've started today is just the beginning of what becomes possible when you truly understand the power of your own consciousness.